Yeshua said, my strength, my strength. Why have you forsaken me? Oh, why are you so far from helping me? And from the words of my groaning, Yahweh, oh Yahweh, I cry in the daytime. Oh Yahweh, I cry into the night. I am not silent, but you do not hear. But you are righteous, you have the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted you, and you delivered them. I trust your plan, Yahweh. I know you will not leave me in the grave. No, no. Then Yahweh said, arise, my son, most honorable the righteous judge.
Was a prophecy, of course, about Yeshua, but he's also speaking of this last day's work under the last witness.
Behold, the man whose name is the branch. Behold, he will branch out from his place and build the great house of Yahweh. It is written, you will not see me until you say, blessed is the man who comes in these last days, in the name of Yahweh. Israel is his name.
Yahweh has the plan, and he's carried it out. You see how simple?
They have been faithful, tested, tried and true. Their strength, Yahweh, he has not forsaken them.
Yahweh can be trusted. The scriptures can be trusted.
Trust in the words of Israel, Yahweh's priest. But there are some who come and feast every Sabbath among you. They are sent by Satan to trick and deceive. But they won't win when you set your mind upon the laws and the prophecies. We must cling to every word that Israel Hawkins has taught us, or we might just slip up and be deceived. Don't let anyone deceive you.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm a daughter of Yahweh Hawkins, and I would like to serve you as a priestess starting very soon. Please start finding your seats for Sabbath services.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I am a daughter of Yahweh Hawkins, and I'd like to serve you as a priestess starting very soon. Welcome to another exciting service. Please get your pens and papers ready to take notes. Please stand and welcome the great priest.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated for a few announcements. Praise Yahweh. Okay. Attention, everyone. We are kindly asking if you need to place any orders for the upcoming Feast of Tabernacles 2026 that you contact the men's and women's co-op stores ASAP so that your orders can arrive timely without any delays. Shalom Women's Choir. We will be having rehearsal today after services in Meeting Room 1 at 12 p.m. That's Meeting Room 1 at 12 p.m. Look forward to seeing you there. Children's choir practice for ages 5 through 14 will be today at 3 p.m. in the nursery. Attention all women. Practice for the one-day event choir will be this evening at 5:15 p.m. to 6 p.m. in Meeting Room 1. We look forward to seeing you there and working together once again. Shalom House of Yahweh members. There are ongoing outdoor projects such as the new women's community area and general grounds beautification. If anyone would like to donate to these projects, there is a list of items on the men's and women's bulletin boards. However, you are not limited to only those items. Any contributions welcome, or even a blank check for $1 million if you have it. Well, not blank, fill it out for $1 million. Let's make this a team effort to create our own Garden of Eden. Please remember that all donations must be taken to the South office. To all our international brothers and sisters, if you would like your sons and daughters, ages 4 through 12, to give a video presentation to this upcoming Feast of Tabernacles, please record a 3 to 6 minute video speech. The theme for this feast is, "We will wait on Yahweh until Yeshua returns." Praise Yahweh. Please send videos to info@yahweh.com. Attention Sound Department. That's info@yahweh.com, Attention Sound Department. Thank you, and we look forward to helping you be a part of this great Feast of Tabernacles. Attention men. Anyone interested in joining a men's speech class, please meet in the Kohan's conference room immediately after services. That's immediately after services for a brief meeting. A gold earring was recently found. If you have lost one or any other valuables, please check with the north or south offices. Please also remember to check lost and found tables for your other items. That was a gold earring that was recently found, so check with the north or south office. All right. Enjoy your takeout dinner today at the Lamplight Cafeteria. For dinner, we will be serving shepherd's pie. For desserts, we have cake, cookies, and ice cream. Abel's Kitchen will be serving pizza, and the cafeteria will close at 5:30 p.m. Come join Yahweh's family for our new moon celebration, 5th day evening. That's Abraham 29, 8/13/2026. The Abilene Women's Peaceful Solution class will be postponed. The new moon meal will be served in the cafeteria from 5 to 6 p.m. and for 30 minutes after the family film. The grill will close at 4 p.m. The charity meal will be served at Abel's Kitchen from 5 to 5:30. We will be serving Abel's lasagna with OB coleslaw and garlic bread. There will be lots of special new moon treats too, and please remember to bring your own cups and plates. Our family film will be shown at 6 p.m. in the sanctuary. Praise Yahweh. Yahweh bless your understanding. If you'll all please stand, turn it over to the great priest for prayer.
If we'd all raise our hands to Father Yahweh. Great and awesome Heavenly Father Yahweh, this is Kahan Nathaniah, Abel Yael Hawkins, asking permission to come before your wonderful throne of mercy, being seed of the last days anointed witness, Israel Abel Hawkins, and through Yahshua Messiah, high priest over the house of Yahweh and soon coming King. Father, we thank you and glorify you for the week that you have given us, Father Yahweh, that we would have our trials and our tests and the things that bring us closer to you, Father Yahweh, and you comfort us with your Sabbath day, Father Yahweh, allowing us to confess our sins and be brought together as a family before you, Father Yahweh, to show that we will fulfill this sign that we belong to you. And we do pray, Father Yahweh, that you would strengthen us in humility, guide us and inspire us, Father Yahweh, that we would follow your path, Father Yahweh, forever, and never, Father Yahweh, turn to any way that is of the gods, but that we would reverence you forever, in unity with the great body of priests, being seed of the last days anointed witness, Israel Hawkins, and through Yahshua Messiah's name we do pray. Hallelujah, Yahweh. Praise Yahweh.
Heavenly Father Yahweh, this is your servant Cohen David Hawkins requesting permission to come before you in prayer, lifting up the congregation of the house of Yahweh, those gathered here in the sanctuary of the great house of Yahweh established in these last days by the two witnesses, and those who are able to view this broadcast, this service, those spread throughout the entire earth at this time that you're gathering, Father Yahweh. Your Spirit is gathering them, the teachings of the last days witness, Yeshua Hawkins, and the writings of the prophets and Yeshua and the disciples. All of us, Father Yahweh, we rejoice in your house and your plan. We rejoice in the smoke of this incense that arises unto you with our needs, Father, our prayers, our requests, and asking that you inspire each and every one of us as we prepare for the feast. Father, guide our minds and hearts and inspire us to bring forth obedience to your laws and understanding and wisdom that we learned from your last day's witness, Yeshua Hawkins. Ask that you protect us from the adversary, Father. We need you, Father Yahweh. We need every breath that we breathe comes from you, Father, and we do thank you for permission to serve you. We thank you for your help and blessings. Ask that you would heal those who are sick and afflicted among us, that we may all, as a family, and inspired by you, Father Yahweh, to finish the work of the seventh Malach. We thank you for him. We thank you for each and every one you have called to your house. We ask you to bless services today, and we praise you and thank you for being a Heavenly Father to us, and give you all honor, praise, and thanks through our great and honorable High Priest Yeshua. Hallelujah, Yahweh. It is my honor and privilege at this time to introduce the daughters of Yahweh.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We have come to another Sabbath appointment here at the Great House of Yahweh. Be prepared to take notes. Please stand as I welcome our first speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. We have the blessing of reviewing the sermon that we heard from our great overseer last, which was his sermon from 5/16/2009. And there's a cluster of sermons given at that time period where he's talking about and explaining the scripture in Matthew 24:15 about the abomination of desolation and what that phrase means and who it's speaking of and what it's speaking about. So today we would like to go over that word abomination and take a look at what and who this is speaking of. So the first thing is, in order to know what an abomination is, we need to know what Yahweh's laws are, which we have all been taught. And we know that this is speaking of Satan herself. So Matthew 24:15, the whole chapter of Matthew 24 is our prophetic timeline given by Yeshua, which is what our great overseer abided by since he was writing the mark of the beast up until the time he went to sleep, because there are certain things in that chapter that Yeshua told us about that are not really given in any other part of the book of Yahweh, but they tie into the rest of it. So in verse 15 we see, "Therefore when you will see the Lord of heaven." And that's the phrase we want to talk about. We know that this is translated Lord of the heavenly habitation, abomination that makes desolate, or the abomination of desolation. And all those words should be bringing scriptures and prophecies to mind. The first one we want to go to is Revelation chapter 17, because there is a key to understanding this. We have to remember that the prophecy always speaks the language of the law. And in Revelation 17, we all know that that's the chapter speaking of Satan, the mother of harlots, the leader of the kings of the earth, and the 10 kings, and the beast, spoken of in Daniel 7. But a thing to remember is this word abomination. Revelation 17, verse 4, "And the woman was arrayed," verse 3, "So he carried me away in the spirit into the midst of God worshippers, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet-colored beast," jumping down to verse 4, "and the woman was arrayed in purple, and decked with scarlet-colored, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of the abominations and filthiness of her fornication." We know that figuratively this falls under the law in Leviticus 18:23, and we know that because our great overseer has taught us that Satan will be judged through Yahweh's laws, and her sentences are shown through the prophecies. That's just one place. Another place is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7. "For the mystery of iniquity is already working, but the one restraining him or her, because she goes by male and female titles, will continue to restrain him until he is made to appear in the mist." Now, the mist is what ties Matthew 24:15 to Daniel chapter 9, because Daniel 9:27 talks about Satan being cast down. All right? "He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week, he will cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. Instead, he will cause the prevalence of the Lord of heaven, even until the destruction that is determined will be poured upon the desolator." We've all been taught these scriptures and prophecies very well by our great overseer, so we want to go over his words. We're going to try to go through it thoroughly. And when we see the number of his tag, we should remember two things. One, that Isaiah 44, Yahweh assigned him and his brother Jacob to foretell these things. And 2, the time period that we're in, Yahweh's kingdom and Satan's kingdom progressing both at the same time. So if we can get the first one, we see the word iniquity there. Iniquity is different from sin. Iniquity is ignoring or pushing away Yahweh's laws, bearing false witness. Now, there's many words that fall under the word sin. We have iniquity, abomination, sin, evil, trespass, transgressions. But what he's pointing out here is that they don't all hold the same meaning, even though they all fall under sin. Iniquity is pushing away Yahweh's laws. We all know abomination means a defilement that can poison the body, and abominable means you can pass it on to others. The next one is when. This is what this whole lesson is all about, a timeline. When you see the cause, we know the cause is Isaiah 24, 1 through 6. They have broken the laws, changed the ordinance. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and he uses the word desolate in that chapter as well. When you see the cause of this, taking her stand in the Holy Land, speaking of the Temple Mount, and that's another set of lessons our overseer provided there. It must be at the same time period of Yahweh's message going out, which is Matthew 24:14, the verse above it. So this chapter, Matthew 24, goes back to Daniel. We have to go back to Daniel, chapter 7 and 9, because only Daniel gave the particular details of the countdown to Yahshua. Remember, 70 weeks of years broken up into 7, 62, and 1 week, totaling 490 years. So the Messiah is cut off, a lamb sacrificed. We know that it took 49 years for the temple to be built where he was, for the purpose of him being sacrificed. And counting backwards 483 years, we get what Daniel was talking about. From Messiah's death going back, you get the time of the commandment given in Nehemiah to rebuild that temple. So we know we can depend on the rest of those prophecies, which show that the man named Rabin would be there to sign this agreement for this last week. And we see that Daniel gives us that accurate count. 3.5 years, the mist that was prolonged in 3.5 years. Yahweh had already given the gods this temple, and he shows in prophecy he was not going to dwell in that house. Remember, he told us he would not dwell in houses made with hands. Titus, the son of Vespasian, now we're going to progress into what occurred afterwards. Titus, the son of Vespasian, polluted the sanctuary. The priests polluted it before him, as Daniel prophesied. We know that was 70 AY, and polluting, the first of the pollutions, goes back to the bearing of false witness. Yahweh's name was taken away. You've caused my people to forget my name. You've polluted my Sabbaths. Things that the prophets talked about. Polluting the sanctuary also included taking away the daily sacrifice or the reading of the laws. And we see that even in Shaul's time, when he sat at Gamaliel's feet, who sat in Moshe's office, that's where Shaul was learning Yahweh's laws, but he also got the experience of the Talmud as well. That's how he was an expert in both. And then we see Titus, the army, the only one who's told us the truth about that in Daniel 11:31 as our great overseer. Then we find beyond Damascus. That includes Moshe and Acts chapter 7, where he said, I would take you beyond Babylon. And that's important for this next part right here. In the next sermon after this sermon, our overseer is still on the same topic, and he says, Shem, remember Shem, one of Noah's sons, organized war against Nimrod, or the Babylonish kingdom. The wise men of Nimrod fled to the 7 hills of Rome. What he was explaining to us there is that the 7 hills of Rome didn't just occur after 70 AY. It was planned way from the beginning. And all the Middle East, the Euphrates, all these countries that are in action at this time, they're actually named in Genesis chapters 1 through 10, even under some different names. But to understand what he was talking about with Shem, the word war, it doesn't really mean war like fight, plunder, kill. It means more like what Yahweh said in the law, you must drive out the God worshippers, or where it says the dragon was enraged with the woman and she made war. It's teaching against. He was protecting the work of Yahweh and driving out the God worshippers. The other thing there shown is Shem making the war against the Babylonish kingdom. In order to fully understand that, we have to remember our overseer's lessons on the kings of the east, because he further explains that this is what Yahshua was speaking of when he told his disciples, I will send you out like sheep in the midst of wolves. Remember, Benjamin was the ravenous wolf. The first king that the people got after they rejected Yahweh was from the tribe of Benjamin. That's how that ties into that. In the 7-year treaty, there were hidden things that gave this property, talking about Israel, back to Rome where they can seize the money. And for more information on this, the 17th and 18th books of Israel are informative because Pastor went into detail on this soon after Trump took his first term in office, after he started in his first term. That piece of land in Israel, he goes on to explain the secret deals and the tourism that the Catholic Church wanted to make money off of and how they created the Gaza crisis. The 7-year agreement is not based on the laws of peace. It is based on extortion. That's why it won't bring peace at this time. The extortion is what Yahshua spoke of in Matthew chapter 23. And he also referred to it in Matthew 11 where he said, forceful men lay hold of this kingdom and take it by force. The plan, this is the last part, calls for Jerusalem to become the second Vatican of the world. They want both places as Vaticans, Rome and Israel. This is interesting because it fulfills Revelation 17, the leader of the kings of the earth, the whole world. For our own time, it would be helpful to study and revisit Satan being cast down, because Satan being cast down has a very prominent part in the 7-year peace plan. It occurred in the midst for a reason, and our overseer actually gave sermons about how the same courts that evicted her, so to speak, out of heaven, is the same court that gave us the right, or granted us the right to wear the purple. And that's a very great study to do because it refers and it shows us a lot about the time that we're living in now. If we can all please stand, we're going to turn over to the next speaker.
Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. Please take your seat in the great house of Yahweh. So wonderful to see you here on Yahweh's great Sabbath day. Today, I'm going to be giving a sermon based on the format that was inspired by Yahweh to our great overseer, given in the book In Search of a Savior, where he proved prophecy of Yeshua. The only thing is I'm going to show prophecy according to Pastor's Lot number 34. We could have our first slide, please. And that's Pastor's Lot number 74, seen in prophecy. Now, in the Hebrew, now remember, this is one of Pastor's lot numbers. In Hebrew 74, it means Father of Light, enlightening. From 52:16, it means to glisten, a lamp, a light, a candle, a lamp light, as in the Western lamplight, the one that will never go out, the one that represents the great house of Yahweh era Israel Hawkins. And also in the Greek 74, it comes from Greek 73, it's a struggle, anguish, agony, a place of assembly. It is more frequently used to denote severe emotional strain and anguish. And in 73, it says a place of assembly, a contest, an effort or anxiety, conflict, fight, connection, race. It implies a contest against spiritual foes as well as human adversaries. And we know that our overseer in Isaiah 48, he says that, 43 verse 28, that he would be given to reproaches. So let's go on to start with 74 in prophecy. Can we look at our next sheet? Thank you. 7/4/1976 was known as the United States Independence Day from Great Britain. Prophecy fulfilled, Isaiah 2:2. It will come to pass in the last days that the mountain, promotion of the house of Yahweh, will be established in the chief of the nations, and all nations will eventually flow to it. The same thing is said in Micaiah 4 verses 1 through 3, which is a second witness to this occurring. Zechariah 5:11. And Zechariah asked the Malach, where are you going with the ephah, that standard of the perfection, the laws of Yahweh? And he says, the Malach said to me, to build the house of Yahweh according to the standard of perfection sent by Yahweh's laws, to a Babylonish land which does not yet exist. At the time of this writing, the United States didn't exist. It was unknown, but in prophecy, they knew there was a place somewhere like this. And they believed the prophets. Okay, so our next one, 7/4/1934, the filing of the patent for the nuclear chain reaction by Hungarian physicist Leo Szilard in 1934. In 1934, this occurred on 7/4. It's interesting that when you put his position and where he came from and his name, it comes up to that same year, the beginning of this last generation. And prophecy fulfilled, Revelation 13:13, where fire could come down from heaven. Matthew 24:29, the sun would be darkened. Malachi 4:1, for behold, the day comes that will burn like an oven. And also in 1934, we know that our overseer was born in 1934, and John Van Neumann was developing the computer in 1934 to show that this was the beginning of this last generation. And in Daniel 12:4, but you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book to the time of the end. Many will run to and fro, and knowledge will be increased. And that's the increase in knowledge, the developing of the nuclear weapons and the developing of the computer. Now, Yahweh showed something this morning was so amazing to me. I just want to share this quickly. Leo Szilard, he was the one that created the nuclear bomb and patented it. What's the name of our Pope right now? Leo. Isn't it interesting that one that created it is named Leo? The one that's going to be in charge of using it is Leo. And not only that, when you put Leo in the gematria, the first two numbers, when you add those together, number 75 and 192, I don't have that with me, it's number 267. And what is the Pope's number? 267. That's just a little something extra Yahweh gave. But let's go on to 7/4, because this is so interesting. So many things occurred on 7/4. So on 7/4, 1990, a suit was filed against the House of Yahweh in Abilene by a well-known sacred name assembly trying to shut down the House of Yahweh. It was filed in the fall of 1989. Prophecy fulfilled, Isaiah 43:13, when I summon them together, the two witnesses, they will minister together. That's what they were doing, coming together to minister. Mark 3:25, if a house is divided against itself, the house cannot stand. Is the house still standing? Right. It will never go down. It will never be divided. We have a law that keeps us unified. We have a Father that continually gives us the strength to go on. Psalm 127, verse 1, unless Yahweh builds the house, they who build it labor in vain. And we saw that the man that was trying to destroy the house of Yahweh, he became seriously ill and he backed off. He knew that he was fighting against our almighty great creator, Father Yahweh. So the date 7/4/1990 was the date of reciprocal agreement by Jacob, the older witness, and Yisrael, the younger witness, was successful in saving the house of Yahweh. That was the date they signed that paper, 7/4/1990. And what's interesting, I want you to understand the time span between that signing and how many days later that Jacob died. It was 262 days. And why is that important to know? Well, we'll see in this last 7/4 prophecy. So on 7/4/2020, the 20th book of Israel, chapter 21, verse 15, it says, the house of Yahweh will be established today. Yahweh said, I will establish my house. It hasn't fully been established yet. Yes, this building has been established in the chief of the nation, but part of that establishing means it's got to be chosen by you. And in the same way, you have to choose Yeshua to be your high priest. Your decision is going to be shown in heaven and earth today. You remember this 2-day trial that we had, the grasshopper and the careless weed. Well, let's go on to our next slide. On 7/4/2020 was when we started that 2-day trial. And it's interesting because that's the date this year was on 7/4/2026, was 6 years later exactly on a Sabbath that anniversary came up. So that number that we said that Yaakov died was 262 days. That's the word amaranth, fadeless, from 1 Kepha 5:3. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive a crown of glory which will never fade away. It's endless, perpetual, it says in Greek 2:63. And in 1 Kepha 1:4, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled, which does not fade away, reserved in the heavens for us. For us. You imagine that, for us. When you go over, and I encourage you to go back to that sermon because it was like so amazing. Some of the things that the overseer said, I couldn't possibly cover it all here, but grasshoppers meant locust, rapid, to increase into whatever respect, multiply, make greater abundance, to cover over. Psalm 91, and he will cover us with the shadow of his wings. Be an authority, signifying long life. How much longer can life get than forever, perpetually, unending, fadeless? There is none. It means to return to Yahweh, and he will abundantly pardon. Careless means to hide for refuge, and weeds mean a reed. And it goes to Hebrews 3:220, and it means locally the West. In the West, we will give this provision of being hid and covered over in this great time of tribulation. Now the next slide, the 20th book of Israel, once again on 7/4/2020, verse 56 says, I've got to cover this word about Yeshua before I quit. Yahweh says, honor my son Yeshua. I'm going to give him it because Yahweh tells you to. You're actually going to give Yeshua power over you. Yes, indeed, it's beautiful. Verse 61, Yahweh says, behold. The word also means honor the branch. So I put honor my son Yeshua and the branch, and it comes out to the house of Yahweh. Only the house of Yahweh knows how to honor our great creator Yahweh, our great Father. The meaning of the word Yisrael, we know, means rule as he who rules as Yahweh. And it goes to 8280, to prevail, to have power. Now, as I was going over this, it made me think of a law. And it was law number 232 concerning slaves. And I just want to read a little of that to you. It's in Exodus 21:2-6. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he will serve you for 6 years. But in the 7th year, he shall go out free without paying anything. But in verse 5, if the servant plainly says, I have my owner, my wife, my children, I will not go out by myself. And so I thought it was interesting that we just finished that 6th year of showing that we belong to Yeshua. And so at this time, I say praise Yahweh and say, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh.
Praise Yahweh. And for the next portion of our services, I'd like to turn it over to the great priests in Yahweh's house. Praise Yahweh.
Shabbat Shalom, great family of Yahweh. Well, we all know the incredible joy and the great zeal that our teacher, Yeshua Hawkins, had for the work of Yahweh. And now it's up to us, his seed, to continue in our zeal and finish this work. So, for a code search on the zeal of Yahweh, please welcome the great deacon, Michael Asif.
Shabbat Shalom. Please be seated, great saints of Yahweh, on this glorious Sabbath day. If you would be turning over to page 602 in your books of Yahweh, page 602. And the reason is this search was found in Yeremiah 33:11, and I thought I'd read this scripture because it's just an absolutely beautiful scripture. 602, Yeremiah 33:11, and the inspiration for this search came from not the last time the daughters of Yahweh spoke, but the time before that. I highly encourage you to go listen to the sermons because they're very encouraging about remembering our first love, remembering where we were when we got called out and all the things we went through. And it inspired a lot of songs and different things in this search. And remember back when you were called. And I was listening to a sermon by our great teacher, the Last Days Witness, Yisrael Hawkins, and he talked about, you remember when you were called, you didn't care about anything. We didn't care about anything. All we wanted was Yahweh's way. And we need to remember that. Do you remember? Remember what we went through? Nothing mattered but Yahweh's house. Don't ever forget that, because this is our life. And they brought out some amazing speeches. And not the last time they spoke, but the time before. Well, all the sermons are really great, but there's a lot of encouraging stuff in there if you're having struggles. And again, don't forget to go to your counselors if you're struggling. They will help you. So let's get into the search. It's just, these words that came up are all words that show from the actions of having zeal for Yahweh and for the house of Yahweh. And we saw this in Yisrael Hawkins' examples and his actions. We saw his great zeal. So again, this was found in Yeremiah 33:11. Let's read that real quick. Verse 11, it says, "The voice of joy and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, the house of Yahweh, and the voice of the bride, and the bridegroom, Yahshua Messiah, and the bride, the house of Yahweh, the voice of those who bring the sacrifices of praise into the house of Yahweh, who say, Hallelujah, Yahweh, give thanks to Yahweh of hosts, for Yahweh is righteous, for his mercy endures forever. For I will restore the captives to the land and make it as it was at the beginning, says Yahweh." This is where the search was found, and that's why I went with this particular matrix here. Now, the letter skip was 70,823 letters or characters between each letter of the zeal of Yahweh. So let's go to the search. Okay. And let's put this up for your screenshot. And then we'll put this down so you can have that. Oh, let me pull it down. Okay. All right, great. Let me zoom in. And of course, right here, the beginning of the search, which starts looking for everything, is right here. The zeal of Yahweh. The zeal of Yahweh. And the first thing that came up in the search was over here, was number 1 and number 2. Okay, number 1 and 2 is true wisdom. It shows forth, when you have zeal for Yahweh in the house of Yahweh, it shows true wisdom. And we saw that in Yisrael Hawkins. Okay, and then we'll jump over here to number 3, which goes across. Number 3 is Debar, or laws of Yahweh. Laws of Yahweh, and it crosses Yahweh's name in the zeal of Yahweh. Okay, Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh right in there. Okay, then we're going to jump over to, right here. Number 4. Number 4 is submission and serving. Submission and serving is all in that one Hebrew word right there, and that crosses the laws of Yahweh, which is number 4. It connects with the laws of Yahweh. Then we'll jump over here to number 5. Number 5. Number 5 is profitable, rewarding, and worthwhile. to have zeal for Yahweh's house, for the house of Yahweh, for the work of Yahweh. The zeal of Yahweh, number 5. All right, then we'll jump all the way over here to number 6. And number 6 right here is authentic and genuine. Authentic and genuine. And then we'll jump back over here to number 7. Number 7 right there. Number 7 is encouraging. It's encouraging. When others see your zeal for the house of Yahweh, it inspires them to have that zeal, to work harder, to study harder, to do their best to walk righteously in every situation that comes about their way. Okay? So this is encouraging. Then we'll jump up here. Now number 8 is right here. And number 8 goes all the way across to the end. And number 8 is education. Education, and it connects to 1 and 2 over here. 1 and 2, which is true wisdom, comes from education from the house of Yahweh. All right, then we'll jump down here to number 9. Number 9 is glory. Glory to the righteous. Glory. All right, then we'll jump just right up above to number 10. Number 10, the zeal of Yahweh brings insight and understanding. Insight and understanding. And then right above that, we have number 11. And number 11 is merciful. And that crosses Yahweh and the zeal of Yahweh. Okay, merciful. Okay, then we'll jump over here. Have to move a little bit quicker. 12, which goes across to there. 12 is modesty. Modesty. And then we're going to jump over to here. 13. And 13 is guidance, instruction, and direction. And it connects to number 3, laws of, Debar, laws of Yahweh. Connects to number 3. And again, that's guidance, instruction, and direction. Okay, so let's have to pick it up a little bit here. 14 and 15, right here. 14 and 15 is peaceful and sure. Peaceful and sure. All right. Let's jump back over here to 16. And number 16 is protection and defense. Protection and defense. When you have zeal for Yahweh and his house, you're going to seek guidance from the house of Yahweh. And in doing so, Yahweh can protect you by following what you're instructed to do from the house of Yahweh. You can't go off on your own. All right, then we'll jump over here to 17. 17 is necessary, needful, vital, and imperative. Necessary, needful, vital, and imperative. Okay, then we'll jump, let's see, right up here. 18. Number 18 is, get this, in the west. This Hebrew phrase is in the west. And of course, it crosses laws of Yahweh, submission, serving, modesty, and needful and necessary, vital, and imperative. So yeah, in the west, you're going to find all those things, the zeal of Yahweh and the teachings from Yahweh's house. Then we'll jump over here to 19, all the way over here in the corner. And 19 is wonderful, glorious, superb, and marvelous. Wonderful, glorious, superb, and marvelous all comes from having that great zeal for Yahweh and his house. And we'll jump to right here. Number 20 is Yisrael, and that crosses number 18 in the west. So you're going to find the great zeal of Yahweh from Yisrael in the west. 20, from Yisrael in the west is where you find that great zeal. Then we'll jump over here to try and finish things off quickly. 21 is the house of Yahweh, is where you find the zeal of Yahweh. 21. And finally, 22 and 23. 22 and 23, the zeal of Yahweh will be in the kingdom forever. The kingdom forever. and it's right next to encouraging. Remember that, the zeal of Yahweh. Now, there were more words that came up. Okay, and some of the other words that came up were Zebulun. Remember the teachings that Israel Hawkins has brought out on Zebulun? Abraham, forgiveness, gladness, learning, proper, the priesthood, teachers, all the teachers of the house of Yahweh, increase, foretold, and wait for it, Yasam. Yasam was the last thing that came up. Yahweh bless you all with a wonderful Sabbath. I have the honor and blessing to turn it over to a dear friend and a great priest, the great Khan, Zephaniah Hawkins.
Praise Yahweh, the zeal of Yahweh. What a beautiful code search. All right, well, our next speaker is very zealous for his part in the work of Yahweh. Please welcome the great Kahan, Benjamin Krause Hawkins.
He was pretty zealous to introduce me. I wasn't even seated yet. But Yahweh's peace be with everyone. Please be seated. And I'm going to be zealous getting through this for sure because I got a little bit to cover here today to set you up for the next one. So go ahead and put up the title for this today. This is Disclosure Part 3. And you see the word calypso. We're going to learn what that means. Some of you Jacques Cousteau fans might remember that. Let's go to the first slide, because I told you last week, or last time I spoke, please read Jeremiah 51. Daniel 7:23 talks about this fourth beast will be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which will be different from all other kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth, and will tread it down and break it in pieces. Now that comes out to 1105, which means swallowed up, devouring. And it's used in Jeremiah 51:44, where it talks about Yahweh is going to make Babylon spit up what he swallowed. He's like a ferocious shark going around just devouring everything in the earth. Let's go to the next slide. From 12/31/16, it's an important date, 12/31, by the way. Pastor said, Revelation 1:1, the revelation of Yahshua Messiah, which Yahweh gave to him to show his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it through his Malach to his servant Yachanan. That word signified means signified through his messenger. Revelation 22:16 shows us who his messenger is. It means to signify, to communicate. Signify this through his messenger, through his messenger. That word signified can throw you off if you don't understand it. He signifies it through his messenger as shown in Revelation 22:16 to his servant who was Yachanan. Yachanan was Yahshua's servant in prison, writing these things out, being taught to do so by his messenger. That messenger is shown in Genesis 49, the donkeys. So Yahweh gives this to Yahshua, who gives it to his messenger to show to Yachanan what to write. If you study this closely, you'll get it. The Amplified Bible actually picked up on this, and I was so pleased because the commentators go into a frenzy when they don't understand something. It's like when a woman sees a mouse or something. They just freak out and they can't explain it. This is the revelation of Yahshua. This is the Amplified Bible. His unveiling of the divine mysteries. It says divine mysteries, but they're his righteous mysteries, the secret mysteries. Yahweh gave it to him to disclose and make known to his bondservant certain things, which must shortly and speedily come to pass in their entirety. And he sent and communicated it through his messenger, which we see the messenger over in Revelation 22:16. It's the house of Yahweh and the trumpeter. Communicated it through his messenger, that's us, to his bondservant Yachanan. Oh, that is beautiful, and you've got to understand it. You've got to understand it. Praise Yahweh. Now that quote comes out to 1074. We know that's the tag number of Israel Hawkins, given to him in 2016, the same year that this was spoken. And it's an eternal tag, 1074. Let's go to the next slide. This word signify, it's 4591, used in Revelation 1:1. It means to indicate and to make known. It says, on the underlined portion, it says the entire apocalypse, that's what they call Revelation, is a divinely authorized disclosure. So it's authorized by Yahweh. It's disclosure authorized by Yahweh. That's 2094. It means to teach, to warn, and to admonish. 3232 goes to 3225, and it means right hand. Now, think of the right hand man of Yahweh. That's Yeshua. He's sitting at the right hand, working with the witness. Go to the next, add those up, you get 5326. It means an apparition or a manifestation, to show, to appear, and to become evident. And that word apparition in Webster's, notice it has 51 synonyms. Remember Jeremiah 51, Jeremiah 51, 51. Keep that in your mind as we continue. The word apparition also means an image. And some of you remember this image? The image of the two witnesses, the Hebrides Islands in Scotland. This was on December 10th, 2014. Now that comes out to 3478 Yisrael, because you can see the witness Jacob is behind him because the spokesman went ahead of him. So you see pastor's face circled there in that circle. It gives you an idea what you're seeing in that wave off the coast of Scotland. That's very important as we continue. Let's go to the next slide. From the sermon on 10704, which is pastor's tag, it says the word voice means through the idea of disclosure. So when it talks about in the days of the voice, it's talking about disclosure, that he's the one that would disclose and reveal all the secrets. That comes out to 179, which is Deuteronomy 179 or 17:9. Go to the priests. This is where you get your information from. The second number is 1074. That's pastor's tag. And 1318 means taught, instructed, communicated by teaching. Remember what he said about that word signify, to communicate through teaching. Add that up, you get 2571. It means a veil or a covering. Yes, because these things are hidden. It's from 2572. It's the word kalupto, and it means to cover up, to hide, to veil and conceal. In fact, the word calypso right there below it comes from that word. It means she that conceals, to cover or conceal, she that conceals. Continue on, we'll see what this is talking about. The next slide says, the name calypso derives from the ancient Greek verb kalypto, meaning to cover, to conceal, or to hide, and literally translates as she who conceals. So put in calypso, to cover, to conceal, to hide, or she who conceals, you get 2928. It means to hide, conceal, to keep secret, things hidden. The second number, 3333, means a casting. And it means, and you go to 3332, it means to flow. And we're going to see what this is talking about because, well, first of all, there's 51 occurrences it shows in Strong's of the word flow. You see that word, you see that number 51 again? Think of Jeremiah 51. 3333 in the Greek means to call to oneself, to summon, to invite, to call from one place to another. To call from one place to another. And we're going to see as we go along what this place you're being called to is. Add it up, you get 6261. It means time, season, now. From 5703, terminus, which means the end. From 5710, it means to take away and to remove. Well, what's going to be taken away and removed? We're going to see here as we go along here. Let's go to the next slide. This is Matithia 27:51. 51. And behold, the veil of the most holy place was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth quaked, and the rocks were split. Rocks were split. You know, Jaws, that was made 51 years ago, it was called the first summer blockbuster. Blockbuster. put in Rock Split Blockbuster, you get 1074. So put in the whole thing. It says, and minds were opened, and many congregations of saints who were called of Yahweh arose. And those whose minds were opened came out after his resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many. So put that in your matria, you get 3220, and you see the word the sea coast, west. The great deacon just talked about the west. But remember the sea coast of Scotland, where Pastor's face was seen. And what does the sea represent? The people, the nation. Remember all the peoples. 2200, the second number, means to cry, to call, to gather together. As the great priest said in his prayer this morning, this gathering that's taking place here at Abel. Now add it up, you get 5420, and it means to block up. From 5424, the mind and understanding. So something's blocking up the mind and the understanding of the people. They don't want them to know about the house of Yahweh and Yahweh's name, Yahweh's glory. Well, who's that? Look at 5420, you see that number one song was The Scots by the Scots. Anybody know what Scots are? They're called the Scots. Now, the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, you see that emblem there with the double-headed eagle there, the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, these Masons are who are blocking this information from getting out to the people. Now, I'll prove it to you here. Let's go to the next slide. This is from the plan of Yahweh. This is from 4:8:18. Verse 33 of all verses, right? Now, Pastor was talking about how Yahweh keeps things secret from certain people. And he says, yes, he kept it secret. He said that the wise and prudent would not understand it. They'd try to block it. Well, who are the wise and the prudent? It's wise in their own eyes. You know, these Masons on the 7 hills of Rome. They're the wise and prudent, wise in their own mind and understanding. He said they'd try to block it, like you just saw in the last slide. That comes out to 58:20, and you see that song again, The Scots by the Scots. That's talking about the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, and then you see Pastor's face off the coast of Scotland. There's a reason why his face was seen in Scotland, in the Hebrides, which is named after the Hebrews, by the way. Let's go to the next slide. Now this is Yachanan 6. Yachanan Mark 6, 47 through 52. Now listen closely, because you see that number 4818? That's the one I just quoted from on the last page. Sermon 40818. So listen to what he says. Now this was after he just fed 5,000 people from a few loaves and a couple fish. So when evening came, the boat was in the midst of the sea, and he was alone on the land. He saw them straining at the oars. This is talking about Yahshua watching his disciples. Think of yourself when you read this. He saw them straining at the oars, for the wind was against them. And about the fourth watch of the night, the fourth watch, what are you watching for? The fourth part of the earth? Are you watching? About the fourth watch of the night, about 3 a.m, he came toward them, walking on the sea. He would have passed by them, but when they saw him walking upon the sea, they thought it was a spirit, and they cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. So immediately he spoke to them and said to them, here's his disclosure. Here's his self-disclosure here of who he is. He said, be of great courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. Verse 51. Then he went up into the boat with them, and the wind ceased. And they were exceedingly astonished within themselves beyond measure and wondered. For they failed to understand. That means they failed to relate to the prior miracle about the loaves. They didn't understand. for their minds were closed. What does that say? It says their minds were closed. What? They were following Israel Hawkins all that time. They heard what he said. They heard the prophecies being proclaimed. Sabbath after Sabbath, feast day after feast day. But their minds were closed. Remember, when we were called, we only got a partial opening of our mind. We didn't get a full opening of our mind. It doesn't say that. Pastor said you only had a small part open. You'll see as I go along what I'm talking about. So that comes out to 408:18, and Pastor gave a sermon on 408:18. I just showed you about that quote about the Scots. But this number 4081 here means clay. Clay. So let's go to the next slide. This is from the sermon on 408:18. No one can foretell the future except Yahweh himself. Yahshua even said that he didn't know. He didn't know. Only Yahweh in heaven knows it, and he's going to reveal all the secrets. Now look at that quote and look at the number. That's the number of the sermon the great Kohan Kifa gave you last week to read, right? 9906. Who lifted up their hands on 9906 and loosed those four messengers? It was Israel Hawkins. Now notice, their minds were closed. Minds were closed is 1335. You see that number 1335? Go read the sermon from 9906 and Pastor explained that 1335 days. Now go and read it again and ask Yahweh to open your mind. Repent of your sins first, and then ask Yahweh, Yahweh, please reveal what this is saying. Because Pastor revealed it very plainly in that sermon. Let me continue. Let's talk about the clay. This is Romans 9, verse 21. It says, does not the potter have power over the clay? Who's the potter? It's Yahweh. Doesn't he have power over the clay of the same lump? Doesn't he have the power to reveal everything? Doesn't he have the power to open the minds of all the people on this planet at his will? Can he not lift that veil? Yes, he can. And he's going to do it when he's ready to do it. Not when we're ready to do it, when he's ready to do it, but he's already shown you when he's going to do it. But it went right under your nose. Put in, does not the potter have power over the clay? It's 2796 masons. Masons. Yeah. Yahweh has power over the masons. Yahweh is in full control of every realm of mankind. There ain't nothing that gets by Yahweh, okay? 4028 is the word parakalypto. You see that word calypso again. It means to cover, to blindfold, to cover all around entirely the face. Yes, the world is covered. They cannot see. And you know what? We can't either. Not the whole thing. But Yahweh, when he reveals a little more, you're going to see. Add that up, you get 6824. It means outflow. The word outflow means people that are transferred out of a place into another place. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, I told you Jaws was released 51 years ago. And by the way, a song called Calypso by John Denver was actually in 1975 as well. 51 years ago. That word 51 means father of wall. And it says perhaps mason. Mason. Wall and mason. Now, Jeremiah 51 says, 51:44, I will teach Baal in Babylon, and I will bring out of his mouth what he has swallowed. Then the nations will not flow to him anymore. Who are the nations flowing to? The Vatican. But it says they're not going to flow to them anymore. Where do you think they're going to flow? What did Isaiah 2:2 say? The nations are going to flow here. He says, yes, the wall of Babylon will come down. Let's go to the next slide. Jeremiah 51:44, I will bring out of his mouth what he has swallowed, is 5:12, because Yahweh's in full control. The second number, 5108, is from 5107. It means to flow, increase, increase. Add it up, you get 5620. You see that Scots again, the Scots. Let's go to the next slide. Isaiah 25:7 says about the house of Yahweh, and he will destroy in his mountain the face of the covering cast over all the people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. That comes out to 70:14 Cain. And 74:69 shepherd, teacher, to devour. Yeah, that's not talking about our shepherd. That's talking about Cain on the 7 hills. That's devouring the whole earth. Add it up, you get 1448, wall, mason. Well, who's he talking about? Go to the next slide, because in the Peaceful Solution Building Moral Excellence unit on page 153, remember 153, the fish? The 153 fish? Leadership without consideration, care, and concern is devastating to individuals and society as a whole. Put in leadership without consideration, care, and concern, you get 477, opposition, contradiction. Yes, they oppose Yahweh. The second number, 2862, means to take away. Yeah, they're going to be taken away. 2485 is the word fish. Yes, you see the Pope with his fish hat there, devouring the whole earth. Add it up, you get 5824, a signet ring. Go to the next slide. If you remember about the signet ring, the signet of Zerubbabel, does anybody remember about that prophecy, the signet of Zerubbabel? It says, in that day, Chagia 2 says, 23, in that day, says Yahweh of hosts, I will take you, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, says Yahweh, and I will make you as a signet, for I have chosen you, says Yahweh of hosts. Pastor says in the special legacy edition about that signet, he means, I'll exalt thee to high dignity, power, and trust, of which the seal was the instrument or sign in those days. So that signet. You know, a signet was a ring that a king had on his hand that gave him the authority from the king above him, or the one above him. Let's go to the next slide. If I could get through this last one here. Okay, so look at Genesis 41:42, because I got to get this to set you up for the next one. It says, then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Yasser's finger. He clothed him in garments of fine linen, and he put a gold chain around his neck. And it says, when a king takes off his ring and gives it to another, this shows that this king has chosen this man to be his second in command. Put in the second in command, you get 1074 and 512. Yeah, Yahweh's in full control, and yes, we are the 1074 right now, right? Add it up, you get 1586. It means chosen and elect. The last slide here, setting you up for the next one. Revelation 1:1 says, the revelation of Yahshua Messiah, which Yahweh gave to him. Notice who gave it to him. It was Yahweh that gave it to him. Yahshua didn't know this on his own. And then he said he signified it through his Malek. He signified it through Israel Hawkins to give to Yochanan, who was in prison. Now notice, and remember this storm, this storm on the Hebrides Islands, it was 96-mile-an-hour storm, which pointed to Revelation. Now look, when you flip this picture sideways, you can see a very sick man with a hand going like this. There's a hand, the right hand is wrapped around him right under his mouth, and it's saying, spit it up, Babylon. Spit up what you swallowed. And if you notice, those fingers, the fingers there, the pastor's face is the fingers of where you would put the signet ring on a hand. So, who was the right-hand man of Zerubbabel, the one opposing Babylon. That's you, house of Yahweh. Now, your assignment is to read the sermon from 9906, beg Yahweh to help you to understand what Pastor was trying to say, and in the next sermon, we'll continue covering that. And at this time, if you please stand, I'd like to turn it back over to the great Kahan Safanya Hawkins.
Well, as the great Khan Benjamin said, this is the generation where Yeshua Hawkins revealed Yahweh's wisdom to the world, but it's also the generation where mankind's hidden sins are brought to light. And we can see that in the news. Please welcome the great Kahan, Ilya Hyler Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. Peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. And of course, in today's society, we literally see it before our eyes because it plays in front of the TVs, on our phones, and everywhere around us. It's there in front of us. And sadly, we can see the result of generations of sin. And one of the first things you're going to see in the news is this shooting that took place at a restaurant called In-N-Out. And watch this man as he literally pulls up to the drive-in. Imagine if you work at a McDonald's or any restaurant, and let's just say Abilene. And if you think this can't take place, just put this in your mind before we talk about it. This was a crime report in Abilene just the last month. 4 out of 5 crimes reported in Abilene were assaults. If you think Abilene's not a vicious place to be and getting pretty rough, you know, when money comes to a city, and Abilene already had quite a bit of money. It wasn't short on money, but now you have AI and other things coming here. A lot of problems come with it, an enormous amount of problems. Watch this man pulls up to the drive-in and immediately shoots a person. And then gets out and pulls out his machine gun, as I'll call a machine gun, a high-powered rifle, and just starts shooting people. And eventually takes his own life. But you actually get to see on video what this man is doing. Now, imagine what took place in his mind for him to be able to do this. What sins took place that most likely took place before he was even born. But the breeding that has taken place has brought this about. The horrible lifestyles have brought this about. The hatred, the love of many have grown cold has brought this about. To where taking another person's life is absolutely nothing. And you're programmed to do it by watching your TVs, you're watching your videos, addicted to TikTok to where your finger just can't stop going. Even when you put your phone away, you're sleeping like this and just keep going. To the point to where even Meta, Facebook, and of course Instagram, which are just as bad when it comes to certain things, literally lost a lawsuit this last week for $500 million because of the damage they're causing children. Now, it's laughable because for someone like Meta, $500 million is like you being worth a couple billion and somebody just took $1 from you. When you're worth trillions of dollars, $500 million is a kick in the bucket. You know, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. So they're not really correcting things. They're just politicians are wanting to make it look like, listen, we stand for you. And they're not standing for anybody. And while all these things are taking place, it's extremely important. I encourage people, try to figure out and watch and understand what it means inflation and why the dollar is going down. And don't think the dollar is going down without intentions. It's being driven down intentionally right now because of the BRICS banking system and people trying to get away from the dollar. The United States government is intentionally driving it down because that makes doing business internationally much easier for other countries. U.S. products become much cheaper when the dollar is lower, so they can buy the products at a cheaper price. They can repay loans back at a cheaper price. So when the dollar is down, it's like giving everybody a discount. Everybody gets a discount on a foreign level. You don't get a discount. You have to pay for it. It's called inflation. It's the dollar is lower. And to give you an idea, our great teacher went to sleep in 2021, but since 2020, and I'll give you this so you can understand how much it's dropped. If you had $1 million in the bank in 2020, and your interest rate doesn't keep up with inflation, which has lost 29% since 2020, you have lost $290,000 just by letting your money sit in the bank in the last 6 years. $290,000. So your $1 million is now worth $710,000. Even though you might still have $1 million, it's not worth that anymore because inflation has consumed it. And that's the harsh reality of what we're going through. And if you're not knowledgeable in keeping up with what's taking place, that's why you see rich people, they dump their money into things that are assets. So they can dump them there, and then when the inflation goes away, they pull it back out. And what they call liquidity. They liquefy themselves again so they can keep the value of the dollar. So be mindful about what you do. There's nothing better to invest your money in than the house of Yahweh. That's the best investment in the world. You can never go wrong. Well, while this is taking place, this is what you have taking place in the world with businesses. Here you see Georgia man weighs chicken on Walmart's own scale and finds nearly a quarter pound were underweight. Staff tells him to stop and says he was asked to leave. And if you notice, since COVID, bags, like potato chip bags, they're the same size, but there's less in them. If you look at, and there's a lot of studies showing this, even liquid drinks, they still say the same, but the bottles are less filled. The price kind of stays the same, but things are lower. But imagine when you go buy a 20-ounce, we'll say Coca-Cola or Pepsi, whichever one you want to throw in, and it's $3. That's outrageous, especially when you can go just south of the border and buy the same drink for $1. Why does it make such a difference? Well, it depends on where it's coming from and how it's taking place. Well, the United States is suffering. People are, you just see here, repossession skyrocket as buyers can't afford their own cars. People saying that car payments are up around $1,500 for a car. It's almost like it'd be easier just to quit your job and stay at home, volunteer somewhere. $1,500, and that's before you get into insurance. Well, of course, we're also starting to face huge water shortages, and of course, not just here in the United States. This is going on everywhere. In the Caribbean, Puerto Rico is making the news a lot. The northern parts of Venezuela with the earthquakes is making the news a lot. The northern parts of Colombia, the western side of Peru, all of these places are suffering enormous water shortages. And a lot of these countries, they have water tanks. And we're kind of familiar with it here. That's how they get their water, is water tanks come and they deliver. The big difference is if you live in a place like San Juan, Puerto Rico, or Santa Marta, Colombia, or anywhere on the coast of Venezuela, well, since the earthquakes, that's kind of dissipated. But they're tourist towns. That's how they make their money. So people that are tourists get all of the water. And if there's any left for the community, then you get it. There are people going weeks and weeks and weeks without water. Now they're starting to pump water out of the ocean just so they can actually use their toilets, which they have to pour in the back of the toilet because they don't have running water in their houses. And I'm talking about millions of people, not a couple hundred, millions of people living like this. And the water shortage is becoming horrific. Well, it's also starting to really affect Lake Mead and Lake Powell. As Pastor spoke about this many years ago, 188 feet below its highest level. It's getting to a very scary condition, and that affects 7 different states. And also, if you read about the AI facilities, they require an enormous amount of water to keep everything cooled down. So even here in Texas, in Abilene, you're going to see there's a lot of cities standing against AI facilities right now because they know what it's going to do to the aquifer and how it's going to affect them. But just imagine if you have to start paying for your water and the person who's selling you water, they want to sell it to you, but they can't bring it but once every 2 months. Imagine how you start stretching it out then. And water is something you have to have. Well, look at what's going on here in California. ICE detainees reveal videos of drinking water apparently contaminated with worm-like creatures. Well, it's because the water is sitting around in tanks for so long, there's no lids on them, the flies are getting into it, and of course, things multiply. Remember, Pastor said, find a way to store water. Keep it safe for yourself. And of course, the easiest way to store it is in the ground. That's the way Yahweh made it. But then you got to make sure you don't have people contaminating what's in the ground. It's a very challenging task, but you can't survive without water. You know, that's one thing we need is water. Also looking here, going into the diseases that are still spreading around, just so you get this really quickly to watch for in the news. You still have the Cyclosporidia, which is spreading around, going through, mainly they say in restaurants, but you can buy it straight from your local grocery store. Salmonella also still spreading around, and watch the products these are in. whether it's cilantro, jalapeno, iceberg lettuce, the eggs, a lot of eggs, 19 million eggs recalled. And then pay close attention to the Candida auris, which is still spreading. And notice where they say it's spreading from. Your hair. It attaches to your skin. And it spreads. And they don't have anything they can find right now to get it off of you. And you can spread it. So when Yahshua said, touch not the unclean thing, he really meant touch not the unclean thing. Stay as far as you can get from them. And watch how they explain it. It's very deadly and contaminating. And remember, whenever you can spread something to someone else that infects them, you become an abomination. So remember to stay away, stay as far as you can get from these things. And then you're also going to see the buildup of the great AI, how the scientists in the last few weeks have designed 16 new viruses. And they say these viruses can go into your body and they can eat all of the bad bacteria. But if you remember, Pastor explained cancer, and he said everyone has a little bit of cancer in their body, and it actually works to clean out things in your body. But when your body gets consumed with too much stuff, the cancer gets overridden, and then it starts flourishing, and then it takes over, and then it starts consuming. And what was supposed to be there to remove little things from your body actually starts destroying your body. It sucks the life completely out of it. And of course, scientists have now created like 16 little new cancers. And it's going to solve all of the world's problems, they say. It's going to take care of everything. Then you have, while the United States are still considering strikes in Iran, and of course, it's hard to even give anything on the news because today we're going to strike, tomorrow we're not, today we're in talks, tomorrow we're not. And it reminds you of what Yeshua said, there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. Russia is supposedly getting ready to attack NATO. Well, that's a lot of countries. Where will they attack? All of these rumors taking place. And while all of that's taking place, remember the scriptures that say, do not hurt the oil or the wine. Of course, Revelation 6:6-8. And you're going to see now, remember, you're paying record number of dollars for gas right now. And Exxon and Chevron and other oil companies are making record profits. In fact, look at Chevron when they show you in the news, and think about this when you go buy gas. If gas is so hard to get, and this war is affecting gas so much, how did Chevron triple its profits in the second quarter of this year? How are they making so much money? It seems like prices could be reduced, huh? Well, look and see what's taking place, and remember what Pastor talked about, the rich getting richer, trying to control the people, and the whole goal is to get this world down to 2 billion. That's what the Catholic Church wants. Never forget what Pastor explained to us about what the goal is. To reduce the population, to get it down to what the Catholic Church wants so everybody follows the Queen of Heaven. That's why these wars take place. That's why these diseases are spreading. Scientists openly admitted they created 16 new ones. So pay close attention and remember everything Pastor spoke about, because everything Yahweh's witness said is truly going to come to light before our very eyes. And at this time, if we could please go ahead and play the news.
Chilling new video just released showing that deadly shooting unfolding at an In-N-Out Burger in Twin Falls, Idaho. 3 people killed, 7 wounded, and the images tonight are disturbing. Police say the gunman first opened fire from his car at the drive-through window, killing an employee. Just moments later, then armed with a rifle, the suspect again firing into the drive-through. For the first time, we're seeing the panic inside the restaurant, workers shielding each other, scrambling to take cover. Armed bystanders confronting the gunman, including an off-duty state trooper returning fire, helping those employees get out of harm's way. Officers arriving within minutes, searching for the suspect with guns drawn, responding to multiple reports of a shooter at several locations and where they finally found him. Tonight, police say the bystanders who confronted the suspect, and you will see them, they helped save lives. ABC's Trevor Roll leading us off tonight.
Tonight's surveillance and body camera footage shows the chaos and the heroism during that horrific mass shooting at an In-N-Out Burger in Twin Falls, Idaho. Video shows the gunman Saturday in the drive-thru, firing from his car into the window, killing a worker inside. He then steps out and shoots a person in the car in front of him. Former Twin Falls police officer Austin James is seen running toward the gunfire, drawing his weapon. He too was shot. The gunman then calmly returns to the window, firing until his gun jams. Terrified workers scrambling away, led by an off-duty state trooper inside. The Trooper and the suspect then exchanging gunfire. Armed civilian Jordan Salinas also fired shots at the gunman.
As soon as some rounds started coming at him, everything changed.
Authorities say they pushed the suspect away from the restaurant toward a Tesla charging station, where he then shot and killed Dale Schultz and wounded his wife, Renette. He then went inside the Twin Falls Visitor Center gift shop. You can see these employees crouching as he goes the other way, and outside, a brave worker distracting the shooter, buying time for his co-workers to run for their lives.
To that young man, you are a hero. Your courage, your composure, your selflessness, in that moment likely gave others the time they needed to escape harm.
Authorities then closing in, tracking the suspect to a nearby construction site. Officers with their guns drawn.
Hey, show me your hands!
The shooter dying from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Investigators say he shot 10 people. 3 of them were killed.
Our hearts are with every victim and family that are now carrying the weight of this tragedy.
And David, investigators say the motive for this shooting is still unclear. The video shows just how terrifying this was for everyone trying to flee, but police emphasize just how many people bravely took action to protect others in all that chaos.
It is official. Lake Mead is at its lowest level since Lake Mead was created with the construction of Hoover Dam back in the 1930s, the result of a 2-decade mega drought. Climate change, increased use of all of this water supply. The bathtub ring now 188 feet tall from the high water mark back in the mid-80s. And this is so vital because Lake Mead and Lake Powell, connected by the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, are the water banks of the American South. 40 million people and their animals and lawns and crops depend on this water system, and the bank is woefully low, only 27% full here at Lake Mead. Lake Powell, similar low levels up there. And because the 7 states that share this river can't agree on how to divvy it up, the Interior Department stepped in recently with a framework that ultimately punishes the lower basin states the most. That is the states below Hoover Dam, Arizona, Nevada, and California. They will have to take the most cuts from their Colorado River supply, but that would be reevaluated every 2 years for the next decade or so. Experts I talked to says this doesn't solve the problem. It just kicks the can down the road, that you cannot conserve your way out of this problem, and ultimately the federal government should be focused on desalination like they have in Israel and Singapore, and figure out how to add an extra 1.5 million acre-feet of water to Lake Mead every year in ways that you just can't conserve. The next step will be to see if these 7 states can come together with a new agreement, or if one decides to sue the others and go to the Supreme Court, which will probably not be a solution for the thirsty Southwest for any time soon.
Puerto Rico is facing yet another crisis. Starting today, major cities are rationing water for residents due to severe drought conditions. Our Dima Zain tells us more.
Amna, for rotating 48-hour periods, the water will be shut off across the island, further disrupting daily life for residents and raising concerns about potential public health issues, prompting the governor to issue a plea asking to use water wisely.
Sometimes we're showering and we leave the water running, and we wash our hair and leave the water running. Let's shut it off when we're washing and then turn it back on to rinse off. That can be the difference in reducing water consumption. Same thing when we wash dishes or do laundry.
This crisis is also exposing the island's aging water infrastructure and lack of immediate government action, leaving many frustrated.
In Michigan, where cyclospora cases now top 11,000, for the first time, the state says 2 people are dead after getting the severe stomach illness that sickened Americans this summer. State officials report both people had significant underlying health conditions that may have been impacted by cyclosporiasis and dehydration. The FDA adding both individuals got sick before Taylor Farms' voluntary recall of iceberg lettuce grown in Mexico July 17th. Dying from cyclosporiasis is rare, say medical experts.
Who is most at risk here?
Most at risk are people at the extremes of age, the very old, the very young, and people with chronic underlying medical conditions.
Tonight, federal health officials report cases in 45 states, and they are investigating 6 clusters. The biggest involving Taylor Farms iceberg lettuce sold at Taco Bell restaurants in 9 states. Both Taylor Farms and Taco Bell say they stopped using that lettuce last month. While the number of cases continues to grow, the pace, at least in Michigan, is slowing. But in North Carolina, food detectives are looking beyond lettuce. Officials there say recent cases reported eating parsley and cilantro.
All right, and let's pick it up right there. Should people be worried now about parsley and cilantro?
At least if you're in North Carolina, Tom, because officials there say, well, they haven't identified a source. When they interview people who've gotten sick, they say those are the 2 herbs that keep coming up. So they say, look, remove it or cook it to be on the safe side. And it's a good idea to check with your state public health officials about what they're recommending as opposed to what federal officials are recommending, because they're talking to people who get sick.
The issue of tainted jalapenos is much bigger than just Minnesota and Chipotle. Tonight, the CDC saying 27 states now reporting salmonella cases related to the peppers. Minnesota, Colorado, and Illinois topping the list. More than 300 people sickened, 36 hospitalized. Now another fast food chain, Qdoba, says it proactively removed jalapenos from its restaurants, saying food safety is our highest priority. Yesterday, Chipotle did the same after Minnesota officials traced many of their salmonella cases to a lot of peppers used by the chain. Chipotle said it replaced the suspect jalapenos with ones from different growers.
How do peppers get salmonella?
Typically through a variety of ways, but most likely contaminated water that it's used to irrigate or come into contact with that food.
Unlike the lettuce-linked cyclosporiasis triggered by a parasite, salmonella is a bacteria that causes fever, stomach cramps, and diarrhea. Symptoms most people develop within 8 to 72 hours of eating the bad food. These high-profile outbreaks involving 3 popular fast food chains, Taco Bell for the lettuce, Chipotle and Qdoba for the jalapenos, have some concern about our nation's food supply.
We have to remind ourselves that our food supply is fairly safe, but things happen, accidents happen, and contamination certainly can happen at any point in the food supply.
Let's now take you to the United States. Overall, superbugs are a big health hazard as they cannot be treated, resulting in 4.95 million deaths on an average per year. But what if you are told that the danger could be lurking in your own hair? One such superbug, named Candida auris, has now spread to as many as 23 U.S. states reportedly. Now, this is a life-threatening fungus which basically enters the body through hair follicles. As it is resistant to one or more type of antifungal medications, treatment can become impossible. It can remain on your skin for months and can be transmitted to other people as well. That is what is known. While this fungus was first discovered in Japan in the year 2009, its first case was reported in the US in 2016. As per estimates, it was responsible for the deaths of 3,000 patients in American hospitals per year. According to reports, close to 3,000 cases have already been reported in the US this year. As far as India is concerned, the country's premier medical research agency pinned this fungus as the causative agent in 5% of all candidemia cases in India. Candidemia, by the way, is a serious blood infection which carries an alarming mortality rate of 33 to 72% in India. Just for perspective. A recent study published in the Science Journal also decoding how this fungus manages to remain on the human skin for months. According to this research, Candida auris manages to achieve this by rewriting skin immunity, as it's called. The study also says, I'm quoting from it, unlike most fungal pathogens, Candida auris automatically colonizes human skin, quote unquote. But what are the symptoms of this deadly superbug? What is known? While there is no common set of symptoms specifically for this, some symptoms include fever, extreme tiredness, low blood pressure, ear infections. What makes it worse is that patients may have this fungus on their skin without necessarily having symptoms. And that's scary. However, according to the US Federal Health Agency, this fungus mostly affects people with severe underlying medical conditions, invasive medical devices like breathing tubes, feeding tubes, and can create pathways for Candida auris to get into the human body. What is the way out then? The big challenge remains that there is no reliable way currently to remove this fungus from the skin. At present, doctors mostly treat this by combining multiple antifungal medicines or try newer medications suited to treat multi-drug resistant infections.
The major ruling involving children and teenagers in social media. The ruling against Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, ordering the social media giant to pay more than $500 million, saying its apps harmed children's mental health. Here's Elizabeth Schulze now.
Tonight, a massive legal setback for the company behind Instagram and Facebook. A New Mexico judge ordering Meta to pay $567 million in penalties and make changes to its apps, saying they harm children's mental health.
Now they must pay the price for the choice that they made to put profits over children's safety.
The judge ruling for users under age 18, Meta must eliminate push notifications at night and during school hours, hide like counts, add safeguards for AI chatbots, and put new time limits on the apps, no more than 90 hours per month. Tammy Rodriguez says her daughter Selena got addicted to Instagram and developed depression and took her own life at age 11. Her mom now one of thousands of other lawsuits filed against social media platforms.
I'm doing it to save other kids' lives. I don't want another parent to have to feel what I feel every day when I wake up and I go home after work and the house is quiet and we don't have that loudness, and that's who I'm doing it for.
Artificial intelligence milestone, AI actually creating viruses?
And George, this is straight out of science fiction. For the first time ever, scientists have used AI to create new kinds of viruses. In a new paper, researchers at Stanford and the Arc Institute say they trained an AI model to predict DNA sequences, so sort of how ChatGPT has been trained to predict the next word in a sentence. The model then went on to write genetic sequences for bacteria-killing viruses that were unlike anything we've ever seen in nature before. So we already know that AI can be used to create genetic blueprints. What's new here is this was not just theoretical. The scientists actually took the blueprint and turned it into living viruses. Researchers said the viruses did not pose a threat to humans because they didn't train the model with data about how to infect people, animals, or plants. But this is understandably raising safety concerns. For example, that AI could be used to create a new kind of biological weapon, that the government doesn't have strong enough safeguards in place. At the same time, there could be major health benefits like new treatments for diseases, antibiotic-resistant infections. So the potential for both enormous benefits and serious danger. Rebecca.
New developments as the U.S. and Israel are planning massive bombing campaigns against Iran. U.S. embassies in several Middle Eastern cities warning American citizens to exercise extreme caution and urging them to leave. Iran once again accusing the U.S. of escalating tensions. ABC's Matt Rivers reports from Jordan tonight.
Tonight, as the Pentagon prepares plans for what could be a major escalation against Iran, Tehran once again lashing out. Iran tonight accusing the U.S. of fanning the flames of a regional war and threatening to attack critical infrastructure in the region if the U.S. carries through with its threats to target Iranian energy facilities. Overnight, Kuwait saying it detected and destroyed multiple drones that had invaded its airspace. In a dramatic move, at least 10 American embassies across the region issuing new stepped-up alerts to U.S. citizens, warning Americans to exercise extreme caution, saying Americans in the region should consider departing or be prepared to depart should there be escalation, with airspace closures a real possibility. Two officials telling ABC News that the Pentagon is preparing a round of intense strikes on Iran that could begin as early as this weekend. Trump saying Friday,
"We'll be hitting them very hard. And, at some point they're going to say, we just can't take it anymore."
Iran continuing to threaten U.S. forces and allies in the region. And tonight we're learning more about how the Pentagon has responded to that threat by reconfiguring its presence from larger bases in Qatar and Bahrain to other countries like Jordan and Israel. 2 weeks ago, 3 American soldiers were killed in an Iranian strike on their base in Jordan. Just yesterday, Staff Sergeant Angel Rampersad was laid to rest on New York's Long Island. Meanwhile, with tonight, Britain's Maritime Safety Agency reporting that 2 more tankers in the Strait of Hormuz were targeted earlier today, a reminder of just how dangerous that key waterway remains.
Well, the war in Iran has been costly for American drivers, but for major oil companies, it's been good for business. In fact, their profits are surging. CBS's Allie Bauman is in New York City and has been following the money. Allie.
Good evening, Jerika. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz cut off 20% of the world's fuel supplies. At the same time, the 2 largest oil companies in the U.S. have seen extraordinary profits.
It hurts the little man because your dollar doesn't go as far.
While drivers in New York City fill up at $6.49 a gallon, oil companies are cashing in. ExxonMobil reported this week profits more than doubled from last year to $14 billion in the second quarter, while Chevron nearly quadrupled earnings to $12 billion.
We've essentially eliminated the low-cost oil producers in the Middle East, and all that's left is largely U.S. oil.
Gas prices right now averaging $4.10 a gallon nationwide, compared to less than $3 a gallon when the war with Iran started. Cal State economics professor Richard Gerhardt says fuel prices are having a ripple effect on everything from the cost of plane tickets to groceries.
If this war goes on for another 3 months, we are probably looking at consumers paying about $1,000 to $1,500 directly in inflation losses.
While energy companies don't set the price of American oil, Democrats in Congress have introduced legislation to tax major oil producers for windfall profits from 2026 and redistribute those proceeds to consumers. Jerika?
At this time, if everyone will please stand, and I hope you caught that last part of the news where the government said they can't control your gas prices, but they'll tax the gas companies for you. Well, where's that money going to go? At this time, we're going to continue in services here with a sermon that was originally given on the fifth Romans month, the 23rd day of 2009. It's chapter 24 in your 9th book of Israel, part 1. It's entitled, The Two Witnesses, number 5, The Abomination That Makes Desolation. All moved to Rome before Titus destroyed the city and the temple. And at this time, it's my honor and privilege to introduce the greatest teacher in the world, the great Kahan Yisrael, Abel Hawkins.
Shalom, everyone. We begin this feast early. You may be seated. Praise Yahweh. Praise Yahweh. You may be seated. I love you, all of you. What is taking place and what I've got to get you to understand, of course, about the universal church. The universal church, it started with Nimrod. And of course, my brother used to brought out years ago, Jacob brought out years ago, that Shem actually organized war against Nimrod. And then, of course, Nimrod, his wise men, so-called wise men, after Nimrod was dead, they fled to the 7 hills of Rome. The story about the wolf that Ramallah and whatever his other the other twin's name was raised by a wolf, and that's what started the city there. I think Yeshua spoke of that, when he said, "I'm sending you out to the wolves, like a den of wolves." Sheep in the midst of wolves. So that's probably true. It has a sense of being true because of the reality that the universal church, that's what it's called now. it was trying to be universal then, under the days of Nimrod, and take in the whole world. The people think, though, the misconception about today's world and today's religions is they think that the Catholic Church was a Gentile group that got started, which it was not. It came from the Hebrews. And this is what you see in the Scriptures, what I see in the Scriptures, and history does back me up, and we're getting more and more evidence of it. But history backs up the fact that the Catholic Church, even in the days when they were in control of the temple, they were Hebrews from almost every tribe, but people who hated, people who came to Samuel and says, we want a king, we don't want Yahweh reigning over us anymore. These are the same ones that took control of that temple. They had control of it before Ezra and Nehemiah ever went there to rebuild that city. They had control of it. And if you remember, they didn't want the temple built. And they gave resistance, but of course it wasn't Yahweh's plan to have it built. So the king, anyway, he gave orders, let them do this work. Yahweh had to have the temple built, and then he had to be rejected. Yeshua had to be rejected. Yeshua came from Abilene, where you come from. The Abilene was never deceived. Abilene stayed straight, just like you're staying straight at this time. Abilene, praise Yahweh. The Abilene never suffered deception. Yahweh kept it going. He had to, so that Book 2 could be written for us. It was written by the disciples, and of course, vital things are found in Book 2 that back up and explain Book 1. Well, of course, during the days of the temple period, they stopped calling it House of Yahweh. It was called House of Yahweh under Solomon, but you remember then under the prophet Jeremiah said, "You've caused my people to forget my name." They caused it. It was a caused. It didn't just happen. It was caused by these religious leaders that rejected Yahweh as their ruler. They were powerful men. They were violent men. And this is exactly the words that Yeshua used for them when he was describing them. Now, I want to read you an article before we go into the history of the Acts of the Apostles, because this shows you the same thing, the same tactic that they used against the apostles that we're going to read. It shows that they're still in operation today, but it's about you, you and me in these last days. Concerns rise over Benton's affiliation with group leader email. Thursday, 14th of May, 2009. A reoccurring broadcast on Channel 12, the Benton Community Access Channel, has sparked concern and controversy among city officials after they have learned of the program's connection to a religious leader who apparently served prison time for sex-related crimes. Now, of course, they know this is lies, and anyone who has sense enough to be a newspaper reporter, he also has access, and he should have learned this in college, that he has access to certain records that they could look up on their computer sitting in their own office, and see that this is a lie that they're telling about me and the house of Yahweh. He served prison time for sex-related crimes. And of course, all of you know this is a lie, but the records would prove this if they just bothered to look them up. But they're not bothering to look them up because they don't want to find the truth. They want to bring forth rumors, propaganda to try to destroy Yahweh's work. This has always been their tactics. This is how they generated hate hatred to start the Crusades. And the Crusades are still going against anyone who will live righteously as Yahshua, or who will teach the laws of Yahweh or use the name Yahweh. Those things you will suffer for. Try keeping the Sabbath in the world of Christianity, and you'll find out the hatred that Christianity has for the laws of Yahweh. The Sabbath, for those who don't know it, it's the seventh day of the week, seventh day of each week, as Exodus 20 shows. Exodus 20 is where the Ten Commandments is found. And the fourth commandment says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. It's the seventh day of the week. Seventh day of the week. And of course, it starts at Friday evening sunset. The evening and the morning were the first day. Starts at sunset and ends at sunset Saturday evening. He says the broadcast, back to reading these lies, the broadcast features Israel Hawkins, controversial founder and leader of the Texas-based House of Yahweh. Now notice they are advertising for us. Whether you know it or not, Yahweh will turn this thing into a blessing. Like the curse of Balaam against Yahweh's house, Yahweh will make it a blessing. He'll turn it around and it will be a blessing to his work in these last days. More than the program itself, some city leaders have raised concerns. No, it wasn't some city leaders. He's lying again. It was some newspaper reporters that was educated in Christianity that learned that we keep and teach the laws of Yahweh. And they're the ones that raised the concern. He's nothing but a liar. It wasn't the city officials. It was the newspaper reporter saying some city officials. If you notice, he didn't name one city official. Did you notice that? Some city official. I could say some people from ACU are saying that God is a donkey. I don't have to tell their names. I could write this all over the world. I could say some executives from ACU is saying that Jesus Christ is a mule. That people got that name from a mule, and they worship that mule. Or he was half mule and half man. I could say any of those goofy things and say some say this from ACU. So they would put a negative feeling against ACU. This is exactly the propaganda that they're using against the house of Yahweh here. More than the program itself, some city leaders have raised concerns about the program's leaders' ties to the local area, to their town. The broadcast began airing after David Knighton, a volunteer for Benton Community Access Association, committed DVDs of Hawkins speaking to Johnny McMahon, president of BCA, and so on here. But anyway, I want you to remember now these lies and the propaganda here, because you're going to see that the same thing occurred in the days of the apostles. Now let me get one more thing in your mind. When the Catholic Church, before it was called the Catholic Church, it was called Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, and so forth. Now they all fought among themselves, but where their real fight was the prophets and the scriptures that the prophets had written. This was their big problem, because the people in Israel had access to the prophets' writings. They were scattered everywhere. And Yahweh saw to it that they were. They were very numerous. And the people had them, and they said, and they kept saying, like John or Yochanan the immerser. They kept saying like him, why are you doing these things? Well, the only way to shut their mouth was murder. So they murdered them, just like they did Yochanan the immerser. But Yochanan the immerser, he was advertised. But the thousands upon thousands upon thousands that these people killed, They murdered the prophets, Joshua said. In fact, history shows that they did. Their own history shows that they did. They murdered the prophets. You know what the first thing they did when they took one of Yahweh's members captive? Before they killed him, they tried to get him to eat pork. This was one of the signs that you were not belonging to Yahweh if you would go ahead and start eating pork as they eat pork. Now, these are the same priests that are talked about in Isaiah. These were the ones that had control of the temple, and these were ones that were having trouble. They was having trouble because they was breaking Yahweh's laws. And when Yochanan came and said, it's not right that you have your brother's wife, he meant you're committing adultery, but it's worse than that. You have your own brother's wife. And this causes confusion. It's perversity, Yahweh says, and it's found in Leviticus 18. Now, why are you doing these things? You think it was only Yochanan that knew this? No, it was a lot of people. And in that history of time that Yeshua was there, you know, Yeshua, when they found out what Yeshua was teaching, there was thousands went to Yeshua. Now, this was the problem. This was the Pharisees' problem. It's still the problem today. The Bible, the Scriptures, is still the problem for the Catholic Church. And when they say, we didn't translate this verse because it was problematic, that's what they mean. Yes, they don't want anyone to know it. It's problematic. Well, now remember the problem they were having. So finally they decided, I'll put this in 10 words or less, try to for you. But they finally decided this is a no-win game here in Israel. Because as long as the people have this temple, they're going to keep these scriptures, and they're going to keep them alive, and they're going to keep coming here saying, why aren't you doing this? So it was a continual problem. They were losing money. They got to where they were losing money because the tithe weren't coming in. This is when they decided to destroy the temple. Destroy the temple, the priests took their stuff, the armies carried it for them, they went to Rome. But they destroyed the temple, and as many of the people as they possibly could that followed Yahweh. The others just simply left. They left and went to Rome or different places throughout the earth. Now, we'll show you traces of this in just a little while. But let me read you here this right now, because after so long a time, what they thought and what they set up in history for Jerusalem, they had set up in many other nations. And they had so-called holy sites that everybody went to. Well, of course, the Catholic Church fed off of that. They got money from it. In other words, they taxed these people. They had these religious sites set up, and they had tourist traps set up like they do today. And of course, this was money coming into their coffers, continually coming into their coffers. When they left Israel, they didn't just leave Israel clean. They had tithes, and they still have those tithes. And they had the tithes under every government that controlled Israel. You'll see this in history if you want to bother to look it up. They had tithes with those governments. They had people that actually went in and took possession of all these things. They saw to that, the Romans saw to that, after the priests left there and moved everything to Rome. They kept these tithes of the holy sites, and they kept the money coming to Israel. Well, what took place? 1948, a group of Jews, because of one single newspaper article in Asia, written by a well-known Jew who the people followed. They got their news from him, and he wrote an article, "It's time to go back to Israel." Well, now these were people that had been hiding. They had scriptures. They had this and that brought back the old troubles for the Catholic Church. In the other nations, they were treating them like dogs, like you saw in Germany. Germany was not the only place these people were mistreated. When Yahweh says, I'm going to scatter you throughout the nations, he meant it, and it took place. He says, you're going to be scattered throughout all nations. This bloodline is going to be scattered throughout all nations, and they're going to trample you underfoot. They're going to mistreat you like they did in Egypt. Well, this is what has taken place because of their religion. They can't keep from making their religion known. They created, the Catholic Church created what they call CPS. I call it CMS. But they call it CPS, which would pry into the people's homes. And they'll say, and they'd ask their children, is your mother and daddy, what do they eat? Did they eat pork? Well, most children would be like ours, and they say, oh, no, we don't eat that old nasty stuff. I remember in Oklahoma when one of the neighbors, he was one of the good neighbors, you know, that we had in Oklahoma when I was a child. Food was scarce at that time, very scarce. I remember meals of water bread and water gravy. Well, this man, he had a great hunt one night. You know, they went out hunting of the night with a kerosene lantern and some hound dogs that would chase varmints. And of course, that night he got several raccoon and several possums, I think, and he decided to share them with my family. And I remember when the man came up, he was in a wagon, and he had these varmints in the back of the wagon. They were already skint and just thrown in the back of the wagon, which made them even cleaner, I think, probably, to them. But he wanted their hides, but he also wanted to share the meat with my family. And he brought these varmints. He got a few of them out of the back of the wagon and brought it. And my dad was standing on the front porch to meet him. And my brother Vernon, he was always he voiced his opinion. You know, he was the one that named me. 1 year older than me, and he and I were there with Dad, and the guy said, we had a great catch last night, and I decided to share some of these with you. And Vernon said, we don't eat them things. And mother dashed out the door, grabbed him by the arm, and jerked him in the house, and scolded him and said, you don't tell people what we eat and what we don't eat. So, you know, this was a thing that was proceeded from Germany and Europe, where the Jews were afraid to tell people that they didn't eat pork. They didn't eat skunks or possums or bull or buzzards or anything like that, you know. They only ate clean animals. But, of course, this was still going on, and the CPS that they called themselves in Europe, that's where it was created, in Asia, by the Catholic Church. And, of course, they pried into the homes of the people, and if they found them living by this religion, then they accused them of being witches. And, of course, the witch hunts at that time were they were outrageous. And the tortures they put these people through for fear. The reason they tortured them before they killed them was because they wanted this fear to get into everyone who heard about this, like they tried to do here in the last 40 years that the house of Yahweh has been going. They try to put fear into you so to cause you to want to leave the house of Yahweh. Well, that's what they did then. The laws in the United States, Yahweh directed these laws because that's where he prophesied he is going to establish his house in the last days. So he directed certain people to pass certain rights for the citizens that they are still trying to get knocked out. They're still trying to get, taken out of the laws of our government here in the United States today. But these rights, of course, gives the person the right to practice the religion he wants without being persecuted, and he's supposed to be safe and secure in his own home. And all of these laws that we have here today, Yahweh himself made sure that we did, because from here, he said, this message would go out to all the world from his house. If he hadn't have established it this way, brethren, we wouldn't be able to do this today. They would wipe us out quickly. Well, now, in Israel now, here the Catholic Church had it their way in Israel, and all the money from all these sites where Jesus supposedly hit the wall with his hand, people come by and drop money in a box to see that hole in the wall that he hit with his hand when he fell and hit that rock. And the place where they're saying he had the Last Supper, it's not really that place, but anyway, that's the place they named for it, because it's easy to get to and bring your money to that place. So they say, yeah, he ate supper up there that night. But the people who come there, they don't know any better. They don't know what the Scripture says, so they don't know where he ate supper. I think the house of Yahweh is the only ones that actually bothered to check it out. Now, the Jews in Israel, there are certain Jews in Israel that do study these Scriptures, and they study both Old and New, so-called New Testament, Book 1 and Book 2 of the Book of Israel. They have their Hebrew copies of it. That's how we got this Hebrew ourselves, and we can trace the so-called New Testament words right back to Hebrew now. And this is how we've learned so much about the mistakes that and the mistranslations and the things that they left out. Well, back to the Catholic Church now, and the reason that there's such a fuss over these holy sites, or so-called holy sites in Israel, which there's several thousand, and each one of them the tourists want to see. You know, they have tourist buses. They did. The tourist trade has dropped to almost nothing in Israel, but the Pope has promised that he will let this tourist trade start again if he gets his way. This is one of his ways of extortion. Remember that word, extortion. Write it down. Remember it. Put it in your brain, because that's the way Yeshua described it. That's one of the words he used in the Hebrew. In 1948, this movement got started to go back to Israel. Well, when these people came back and says, we're going to establish our nation, Jerusalem's going to be our capital. They first started in Tel Aviv, but they moved it to Jerusalem later. Well, there became a problem with these holy sites. They didn't want the Catholics coming in and getting all their money here. They wanted this money for themselves. So this is where the fight began. And of course, after Ottoman, then that ceased, because the Jews took over here. But during Ottoman, up until then, the money kept going to Rome, to the Vatican in Rome. After that, then the money stopped after 1948. And then after the 6-Day War, then Israel took all the money and they started taxing the Vatican for everything they had in Israel. Now this became a sore spot. So the Vatican would not recognize Israel as a state. They wanted them wiped out. Now these are the things that's been going on in history since the Jews took that nation over this last time. But the Catholic Church has been working diplomatically now to get all this changed. And this is what you see on the news taking place. They're pulling one string after another with the nations. They're causing one war after another. As Malachi Martin says, they have money behind them. They can throw money to make a nation fall or stand. And through propaganda, he says, they use the news media, he said. This is all in the book, The Keys of This Blood. The Keys of This Blood. And I think that's the reason that Malachi Martin died so suddenly, was because of that and the interviews that he was putting out concerning the Catholic Church and its plans. Well, here's this is just a update of the history, if you've been keeping up on it. This is an update on the history of the Vatican-Israel relations. Now, this was put out, this update, in May the 12th, 2009. Catholic-Jewish relations, normalizing diplomatic relations, dealing with the Holocaust. This is a big problem right here because the Jews know what they have suffered at the hands of Christianity, and it's not going to fade from their mind, because they keep reminding their people with museums. The Holocaust Museum, if you haven't visited one, you get the opportunity. Well, I think it's too late now, but it's horrible. I don't know, but what we don't have some films of that you could get without, you could watch it without getting yourself in trouble. But the introduction to this, it says the relationship between Catholics and Jews is marred by centuries of troubles. Centuries of troubles. This is what I've just got through telling you about. And they have worked for centuries. They have killed thousands upon thousands of Jewish people, anyone who would keep the laws of Yahweh, with their crusades and so forth. The Vatican moved to improve relations with the Jews in 1965 because this was what they were wanting to get this money back. Okay, the Vatican moved to improve relations with Jews in 1965. Now, this was after they started losing this money in Israel. We're talking about millions or billions of dollars here that was coming to the Catholic Church that was suddenly, the valve was shut off. They no longer got it. So they started looking to, the Vatican started moves to improve relations with Jews in 1965, although it did not formally recognize Israel until 1993. The only reason they recognized it then was because they got their way with Jerome Perez, who signed certain things that we're about to read here in just a little bit. Today, experts say relations between the Vatican and Israel have never been better. Still, trouble spots remain. Lingering Jewish bitterness over the Vatican's posture during the Holocaust, the uncertain legal status of church and property in Israel. Uncertain? Yes, because there's secret deals that the people are finding out about. Secret deals made with leaders. Why were those leaders influenced, and how were they influenced? And why can't we see these? Why can't we see the whole deal, they're saying? Why can't it be published so we can read it? Well, these things have got the people worried, and the people, when they worry Caesar also. When they're plagued, they plague Caesar, and he has no rest, day or night. And outstanding concerns about Christian religious sites in the Holy Land continue to be diplomatic sticking points. Catholic-Jewish relationships. In 1965, the Second Vatican Council adopted the declaration of the relation of the Church to non-Christian religions, called Nostra Aetate, in our time. The declaration addresses the Church's relationship with all non-Catholics and, in particular, affirms the deep connection between Christianity and Judaism, rejecting anti-Semitism anytime and anyone, by anyone. Now, this is speaking with a forked tongue, because you can say this and you can condemn somebody for saying the Jewish people did this, but at the same time you can be paying the Palestinians to start a war with them. So it's not like they love these people. It's like they're trying to get their way with these people. So on the one side of their mouth, they're buttering them up. On the other side of their mouth, they're creating problems to cause them to give in to the Catholic Church. This is what they're saying here, and this is what is happening in Israel at this time. That's the reason that this thing is not going to bring peace. It's not based on the laws of peace. It's based on extortion. Remember the word extortion. Anytime they forbid this, anytime by anyone, it says. In 2005, Eugene Fisher, Associate Director of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Secretariat for Ecumenical and Inter-Religious Affairs, said the declaration marked the end of a long era in the history of Catholic-Jewish relations. Yet Nostra Aetate made no specific mention of the State of Israel. The Vatican did not officially recognize the country until 1993. In the intervening years, the Church continued to seek reconciliation with the Jewish community, including the 1974 creation of the Commission for Religious Relations with the Jews. What they're doing, they're seeking to get their way in Israel. And they're pulling these strings among the nations, among the people in the nations, and there's probably more Catholics in the Orthodox rabbi community right now than they are, pretending to be Orthodox Jews than they are Orthodox themselves. This is the way they work. They get people inside the religions, and they try to work from inside, but they have to work very carefully so they won't be recognized. In the intervening years, the Church continued to seek these relations. In 1998, the Vatican issued an apology for the Catholic failure to do more for the Jewish people during the Holocaust. It was considered an important step in easing relations. Some experts say Pope John Paul II was particularly successful in easing sour relations. Experts say, noting his historic visit to Auschwitz, his close friendship with the camp survivors, and his trip to the Holy Land in 2000, where he wept at the Western Wall, Now, according to Yeshua's words in describing these people, he says they put on a pretense. Remember how they used to hire people to weep at funerals? I guess they still do, when they really want to make a big show. They actually have weepers that come in at funerals, and they pay them money to go in and make out like they're real sorry about this, that this person died, when they don't even know him. It was a substantively powerful moment, it says. Timothy Samuel said, Senior Fellow for Religion and Foreign Policy. Even with the growing interfaith dialogue, experts say that a number of tensions remain. Among them is lasting anger and mistrust within the Jewish community. That's the people themselves, not the leaders. Over centuries of mistreatment at the hands of Christian generals and Roman Catholics particularly. He says the Vatican has gone out of its way to dispel any notion that Jews can be held collectively responsible for the death of Jesus. When you realize the facts here, you will see that Yeshua was put to death by what is called the Catholic Church now. They were called Pharisees then. They owned the temple. They ran the temple. They still have all the artifacts of the temple, and they're in Rome. And their army, which they used to take them there, were Roman soldiers, of which, if you remember, the great Shaul, the apostle great Shaul, was a Roman soldier. Remember that? I'll give you more on his history in just a moment. The people of, the death of Jesus. However, Pope Benedict, in 2007, decision to allow part of the Easter prayer to be said once again in Latin, a version which includes language viewed as a call for the conversion of the Jews, sparked anger again. So you see, they're seeing, when they see a little bit of the light of the lies they're bringing forth. Remember how Daniel said they all sat around the table and lied to one another? Well, these are the things that they bring forth, how they're going to convince that person to like them, and that person gets a spark of their true spirit back here, and they find out that their spirit hasn't changed. It's the same old spirit. Then it sparks anger again. The Vatican's position on non-Catholics remains that divine salvation cannot be achieved outside the church, but there is an ongoing discussion on whether God's covenant with the people of Abraham still stands. Well, of course, they are the Catholics. They don't understand the way to salvation, but they can pull these strings to try to convince the Jews or anyone else that there's no salvation except in the Catholic Church. Okay, property remains an issue, or the issue. In 1993, now remember what took place in 1993. That's when the 7-year peace agreement was signed. And in that 7-year peace agreement was hidden things that gave this property back to Rome, to the Vatican, to where they can seize the money that comes in on it from Israel again. In 1993, in the 1993 Accord has yet to be ratified by Israel's Knesset, and the legal status of church and properties and communities in Israel are still under negotiation. Now that was before. All that's settled now. Massa says the Vatican is disappointed with the unresolved economic issues. Notice, it's economic issues, nothing but money, and lack of ratification. The church has extensive properties in Israel. The church has extensive properties in Israel. When the region was controlled by the Ottoman Empire and later the League of Nations, those properties enjoyed a special legal and tax status, which became unclear once the State of Israel was created. In a paper on the first 5 years of the Accord, Rabbi David Rosen, director of the American Jewish Committee's Department for Interreligious Affairs, said, normalizing the legal standing of church personnel and institutions are complex matters, he said. The Holy See would have liked to have been considered as an extraterritorial entity. Now, this is the way they were set up after they took everything to Rome. They had the ties in Israel because they still control these sites, these so-called Christian sites. And every government that they allowed to govern that thing, the Catholic Church didn't want to try to anymore. The priests were getting tired of it. They couldn't stand it. They couldn't put up with the troubles that was being caused there. This is the reason they said, let's go to Rome. Let's just move the whole thing to Rome. We'll let whatever nation we allow to come in here and govern this, we'll keep control of the sites. The money will come to us, but we won't be bothered with the rebel of the Jew, is what they called him. Remember, that's what Constantine, one of their emperors, called it. We want nothing to do with the rebel of the Jew. So they would turn this over to one nation or the League of Nations, but each time they would allow this to take place, they would keep control of this property, and the money would come to them. And that's the way they wanted it. They called it extraterritorial entity, enjoying the same privileges granted to foreign delegations and their properties, he said. Rosen contends, aside from the principle, he to have done so for the Catholic community without doing so for the other Christian denominations would have posed substantial difficulties, he said. Now, in December 1993, the Vatican and Israel signed a diplomatic treaty. They exchanged ambassadors. A few months later, the Vatican-Israel agreement normalized relations between the two nations, furthered a Jewish-Catholic dialogue already underway. This was December 1993, and helped establish a path for regularizing the church's legal status in Israel. On the whole, it's a pretty promising relationship, he said, noting that it isn't always without tension. Overall, the Vatican's relationship with Israel is based on international law, not theology, he says. International law has nothing to do with theology. They don't want to argue the scriptures. they want what they think is their money. September 1993. On the 10th of September, just 3 days before the signing of the Oslo Accord, Washington, the Italian newspaper La Stampa, reported that then Foreign Minister Simon Peres concluded a secret deal with the Vatican to hand over sovereignty of Jerusalem's old city to the Vatican. The agreement, and it was included in the secret clause of the Declaration of Principles signed on September 13th, 1993 in Washington. It was signed, but it was secret. It was added to it. I think they call that pork barrel. Well, of course, I think they named this right, and I think it came from the pork barrel itself, because when they can't get a bill through, and then all their senators have read it and read this one and denied it, then what they do, they secretly pass another bill that somebody likes. See, and they let them read it. And then, after they've read it, they add some pork into the barrel. So they put this bill out, the senators look at it, no, I've already read that, let's go ahead and pass it. Not knowing that these things have been added to it, and they don't bother to read it again before they sign it, see? They say, no, I've already read it. Then later on they say, well, that wasn't there when I read that. Well, it's too late now. You've signed it, see? Well, this is what they're talking about here. They brought this through, and the Jewish people know this in Israel, and this is the reason they're suspecting that nothing has changed with the Catholic Church. They're still the same old religion that killed the prophets, that killed Yeshua, that killed his disciples and so forth, and have tortured people who want to live by the laws of Yahweh. And there are many people, even in the United States, there are many people, brethren, that would like to teach their children the laws of Yahweh, and they're afraid to. Praise Yahweh. Well, we hope to squash those fears, because Abilene, this spot you're sitting on right now, is still the safest place in all the world. And it's going to be throughout Trib. Signed on September the 13th. Okay, let me go back. Simon Peres concluded a secret deal with the Vatican to hand over sovereignty of Jerusalem's old city to the Vatican. The agreement, and it was included in the secret clause of the Declaration of Principles signed on September the 13th, 1993, the 7-year peace agreement. In the same week that Israel's foreign minister and chief Oslo architect, Simon Peres, signed the Declaration of Principles with Yasser Arafat in Washington, the Israeli Vatican Commission held a special meeting in Israel. Under the Vatican's agreement, the Israelis would give over control of the old city to the Vatican before the year 2000. The plan also called for Jerusalem to become the Second Vatican of the world. Now, this is their plans. Now, get this in your mind. This is their plans. They want to actually own this now and have both places as Vaticans, Rome and Israel, because they see they can't actually control this like they want to, so they want to set up a Second Vatican where they can have control. Now, listen to the rest of this. Second Vatican of the world, with all three major religions. See, they're making out like that all three major religions are going to have equal rights there. Not so. Represented, but under the authority of the Vatican. Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, but the old city will be administered by the Vatican. Well, of course, that was all signed around the table that Daniel spoke of. Let's see. The Apostolic Creed. This was what I was supposed to have brought out last week, but David didn't have it. But if you think that the Protestant Orthodox, I'm just quoting here, and other churches that left the Roman Catholic Church truly left the Pope, think again. This is the creed proclaimed by every Protestant, Orthodox, and non-Catholic church. It is written in the song books, books of worship, or other doctrinal books of every church that supposedly left the Roman Catholic Church. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only begotten Son, or Lord, our Lord, it said, who was conceived by the Holy Ghost, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. He descended into hell. The third day he rose again from the dead. He descended into heaven and sits at the right hand of God Almighty. From thence he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe in the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints. Now that's what they are, even the ones that left. The ones that left, they have it in their songbooks that they still believe in the Catholic Church, and this is the only place, the Catholic Church is the only place that has salvation to offer, true salvation to offer. This is their belief. I want you to go over to Acts the 6th chapter now, with what we just read in mind. Acts the 6th chapter. Now, in Acts 6 and verse 9, we see some of the persecution that is going on here. Acts 6 and verse 9, he says, Now some of those who belong to the synagogue called Freedom's synagogue, that is Cyrenians and Alexandrians, and some of them with Cilicia and Asia. Cilicia, if you remember, is where the Apostle Shaul was born and raised. They rose up and disputed with Stephen. Some of them rose up and disputed with Stephen. At that time, the Pharisees, if I can find it here, look back to chapter 5, and in verse 26. And here's where they were rearrested. But the Pharisees, they didn't have the computers we have today. They didn't have the television set. But they had their way of spying. They had their eyes and ears here and there throughout Israel, because they were trying to squash the name and the laws of Yahweh. And they were really fighting against this. They finally gave up. They decided to just wipe them out, which they thought they had them all wiped out, but then they kept cropping up even into the ones they took prisoners, or the ones that escaped. A lot of the Jews, when they saw Israel going down, they actually just took their families and left and went to another nation. And of course the armies were there, but they weren't so thick that you couldn't get through them. It's kind of like the spies of, that came to Jericho, and spied out the territory. Now they have the radar to watch everything, but they didn't have it at that time. They just had armies here and there and army camps. And of course they had the main roads blocked, but as the spies did, they went out the other way. This is the way they escaped from Israel also. When they saw that Israel kept getting worse and worse and was going to be destroyed, they just simply left and went to other country. But this was Yahweh's prophecy, that they would be scattered into all nations. Well, they tried to group in these countries where they went to, and quickly they were spotted, and of course they had Catholics in all countries. The Catholics, I have a map here. I want to get this in your mind because it also includes a prophecy of Daniel. And I'm glad you can see the color there. The yellow, all this yellow here is Christian. The green is the Muslims. And Israel sits right in between these right here, in between the two. Now keep that in your mind. The green here is Muslim, yellow is all Christian, and then Israel sits in between. Keep that in your mind because I'm going to bring it out later in prophecy, showing the last days and how nobody could understand this because they're looking for the wrong thing. But now back to Acts here, 6 verse 9, the persecution. And then here we headlined it here for you. Over verse 26, it says the apostles rearrested and taken to trial. Rearrested and taken to trial there. And then in verse 34, the Pharisees, notice, then a number of the council, what was this council? Is the Pharisaic council. They were the ones that were trying to squash the name, the use of the name, and the laws of Yahweh. Now this was clear back in the days of Jeremiah. What did they do to Jeremiah? You remember? Cast him into a well. He almost died. One of the apostles, they put in a hollow log and sawed the hollow log in two. Anyone who would worship Yahweh or kept Yahweh's laws, they were trying to squash out. The same as Cain. The same as Nimrod. Nimrod was against Yahweh. He was a terrorist. And this is exactly the same teaching that came down and being inspired by the same one. Remember who owns the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church doesn't practice the laws of Yahweh. The apostle himself, Yochanan himself, says, sin is the breaking of the law. 1 John 3:4. 1 John 3:7 says, don't be deceived by any man. He who practices keeping the law or practices righteousness, sin is the breaking of the law, righteousness is keeping the law. He who does not practice righteousness is not righteous. Then verse 8 says, he who does not practice righteousness belongs to Satan the devil. Now, if you clue that into Romans 6:16, it says, you belong to whom you obey. You can see who the Catholic Church is obeying in these crusades and its fight against the name Yahweh. Don't say the name. Don't use the name anymore. Don't follow these laws of Yahweh or you'll be persecuted by us. That's the Catholic Church. You can see the same thing is taking place right here in this council in verse 34 of the Pharisees, council of the Pharisees. They were here to judge the apostles on using the name and the laws of Yahweh. And they rearrested them, tried them, and then, of course, Shaul went to using some maneuvering here. But look at chapter 9 of Acts, and notice verse 1 and 2. Then Shaul, he was one of them. He was a Roman soldier. Shaul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of Yeshua, went to where? Oh, the Roman general to get permission, right? Do you see that? Who did Shaul go to? He was a Roman soldier, for heaven's sakes. Who did he go to get permission to kill the saints? The high priest that ruled the temple. The same ones that left and went to Rome because they couldn't handle the job they were trying to do. And trying to still keep control, even today. He went to the high priest, being a Roman soldier, and he asked him for letters to the synagogues, to Damascus, so that if he found anyone belonging to that way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem to torture and to kill. He was the CPS of that day. Before he was converted, Shaul became a very great prophet, apostle, after he was converted. My time is up, but we'll pick up where we left off next Sabbath. Now, next Sabbath is the Sabbath just before Pentecost. We have a double Sabbath in a row, and maybe we can get some of these facts. I would this was a 7-day feast instead of a 2-day feast. Maybe we could get all of this. Praise Yahweh. I love you, brother, and don't anybody miss. If you know somebody's missing, you get them and tell them they better be here. Yahweh bless you. I love you. Yahweh bless you.
Praise Yahweh. Should remain standing for a few announcements. Well, you can sit down for. You could be seated. Okay. Attention all. The Peaceful Solution Character Education Incorporated cordially invites everyone to join us for this fall Peaceful Solution Conference scheduled Yaakov 18, which is 9:30. 2026, date 9:30, not time, 9:30, 2026. Our theme, the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program is the missing bridge between all nations. Come and learn how we can build this bridge together. We are again preparing for a very delightful breakfast for all of us to enjoy. And if you look at the screen, there's a reservation card there. And that's going to be available on the men's and women's tables, and will also be available at the South Office in town starting tomorrow. Please turn in your reservation cards with your choice of menu by 8/31/2026. 8/31/2026. Keep that in mind there. Make sure you get that turned in. We are anxiously awaiting your reservation so we can have your scrumptious breakfast ready for you to enjoy at this Grand Peaceful Solution Conference Fall 2026. We look forward to seeing you. Praise Yahweh. Also, as a reminder, attention men, anyone interested in joining a men's speech class, please meet in the Kohan's conference room immediately after services for a brief meeting. And also, just to keep in mind, come join Yahweh's family for our new moon celebration this coming 5th day evening, which is Abraham 29, 8/13/26. The Abilene Women's Peaceful Solution class will be postponed. The new moon meal will be served in the cafeteria from 5 to 6 p.m. and for 30 minutes after the family film. The grill will close at 4 p.m. The charity meal will be served at Abel's Kitchen from 5 to 5:30. We will be serving Abel's lasagna with OB coleslaw and garlic bread. There will be lots of, praise Yahweh, special new moon treats too. And please remember to bring your own cups and plates. Our family film will be shown at 6 p.m. in the sanctuary. That's all for announcements. If you'll all please stand, we'll turn it to the great priest for closing prayer.
Raise our hands. Great and merciful Heavenly Father, Yahweh, this is your Son, your servant, slave, a priest in your house, Shimon, Yeri Hawkins, come before you under the headship and unity body of priests, being seated last days and under witness to great Kenya Shebel Hawkins, the most top teacher, judge, and guide, Yeshua Messiah. We, your people, Father, we do seek your dismissal at this time as to, we ask that you go with us in peace as we continue to rejoice at this Sabbath, Father Yahweh. We ask your blessing upon the meals, Father Yahweh, permission to partake of them, Father Yahweh. And we do seek, Father Yahweh, and ask for your inspiration, that you would inspire us, Father Yahweh, to rehearse these words and the testimony brought forth from your witness, that we hold firm to these things, Father Yahweh, and draw close as a family, that we build one another up towards this great house, Father Yahweh, your only established work. We do seek your assistance and guidance in these things, and pray, Father Yahweh, that you would continue to work with us, Father Yahweh, each and every one of us. We thank you and praise you. Pray and ask all these things in Yeshua Messiah's name. Hallelujah, Yahweh. Praise Yahweh.